Let's get right to this morning's hot button. The incredible story of a family locked in a New York City apartment, hidden from the outside world for more than a decade. The brothers are the subject of a new documentary called The Wolf Pack. And ABC's Elizabeth Vargas is here with more on this story. Good morning, Elizabeth.
Good morning, Robin. Could you survive being locked in a tiny apartment for 14 years, perhaps even learn to thrive? 6 brothers and 1 sister did just that. Some of them born, all of them raised, living in a tenement. They and their mother captives. This is the story of family, fortitude, and the power of film. In the gritty chaos of the Lower East Side for more than a decade, behind these windows was an entire family almost no one knew existed. They are the Angulo family, Oscar and Suzanne and their 7 children. Their neighbors never saw them.
I've been here all my life. We didn't know they existed.
The children, raised in 4 small rooms, homeschooled their whole lives by their mother and locked in by their father. For 14 years, they lived by his rules.
If he put us in a room, we have to stay there until he says you can go.
Oscar had the only key to the apartment, and only he could use it.
So this was always locked?
Always.
What did he exactly tell you? Did he say it was dangerous outside? What did he say would happen to you if you went outside?
He would say to us, so outside there's good people and there's bad people. You know, I'd like to keep you all here, protected, you know, because this is a big city. There's a lot of crime going on.
Their father gave them free rein to just one thing.
I don't shine shoes anymore.
Movies. They were the boys' only window to the outside world, losing themselves in the wilderness of The Last of the Mohicans, the streets of Sicily in Godfather, and the gritty New York underworld in Goodfellas. The films were more than entertainment. They were salvation.
The movies taught us, like, sort of how to speak to one another.
Who the hell else are you talking? Talking to me?
How you interact with another person, then have an opinion.
Marvin, what do you make all this?
How many hours a day would you watch these movies?
All day.
A whole day?
Every day.
How many movies have you seen?
Let's just say over 10,000 movies.
You've seen over 10,000 movies?
Like, at least The Dark Knight,
Pirates of the Caribbean, Blade Runner, Taxi Driver, and Apocalypse Now, Citizen Kane.
No Country for Old Men, Halloween, Gone with the Wind.
At some point, simply watching is not enough.
Mr. White.
The boys decide to become a part of the movies they love. In the confines of their tiny apartment, their imagination runs wild.
Every time my fingers touch brain, I'm super fly TNT.
With every line, every hand gesture, every expression memorized, they assign parts and perform. Their only audience is themselves. Scenes from Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction.
Don't be looking at me like that, right? I can feel your look.
Batman. Every punch choreographed. As for the neighbors they never saw,
We make up characters out of them. Like, if we hear yelling or, like, loud music, we'd be like, that sounds a little bit like Goodfellas partying. Maybe Robert De Niro was living in there. We just imagine a lot.
Sort of what you miss out on, you make up in fantasy.
until one day fantasy becomes reality.
It's now or never.
When life inside became too much to bear, and one son found the courage to break free.
I'm going to do it now.
And a chance encounter with a woman who will change their lives.
It was like one kid, and all of a sudden it was 6 of them, and I ran after them.
That young woman, Crystal Mazel, would go on to change their life. She made the documentary The Wolf Pack, which debuts nationwide tonight. We're doing an hour-long special. It's an incredible story.
Where do we start?
Yeah,
all the questions that we have for you.
Wow. What's their favorite movie?
I asked them that. It's an impossible question to answer. They have watched and memorized thousands and thousands and thousands of movies. They reenact scenes. They carefully make props out of garbage.
So are they going to use this and become, you know, the next Steven Spielberg?
Well, most amazingly, one of the boys, we have videotape of him 5 years ago that Crystal took. She's teaching him how to use a camera, how to push record, what a tripod is. We have videotape of him today working as a cinematographer.
Oh, that's so cool.
On an independent movie.
But they memorized the lines to all these movies.
They
These
wrote
movies
down
saved
all
them.
the scripts. We have them. They show them to me. It's pretty incredible. But even most amazing, you know, as they're going out and rubbing elbows now with celebrities and getting all this fame, they still go back to that tiny tenement apartment.
Yes.
They all still live there except one son.
And to be so well-adjusted.
It's
After
amazing.
all,
It's a testament to the power of imagination, the power of resilience, and family film and fortitude.
This is an incredible story. You said it's the most shocking you've ever
It's my
done.
favorite hour I've ever done.
Wow, well, that's a tease.
And you can see, you'll see the full story on 2020 tonight with these two that are sandwiched between
yes.
right over here.
Right here.
And as
We're
you
going to
were
kick you
talking
two
about,
out.
the Wolfpack documentary opens in theaters nationwide today,
Yes,
right? All
today.
right. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thanks, Robin.
See you tonight at 10?
See you tonight.
All right.
Be square.
Be there.
It's a New York City public housing development, home to some 800 people. I am a rare visitor to the apartment where the Angulo family lives.
Come on in.
21-year-old Mukunda invites me in, show me the home that was his prison for 14 years. The apartment is 1,000 square feet. The largest space is this living room.
That's two of me.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is small.
The apartment home to 7 children and their mother Suzanne and their father Oscar. He had the only key to the front door, and only he could use it.
So this was always locked?
Always.
His father blocked the door with a tall ladder to keep intruders out and his wife and children in.
And when you lift the ladder, it'd make a loud so he would know if anyone was attempting to go out.
Oscar creates their own fortress of solitude. In these home videos, scenes of the strange world in which they lived. Part Hare Krishna, part paranoia, Oscar's own hermit kingdom.
So we had this idea of having a big group, like our own community, our own race here. It's almost like a tribe that you have.
Vishnu is the first child and only daughter born with a rare genetic disorder. A year later came Bhagavan, and a year later, fraternal twins, Govinda and Naranya.
Where did they get these names?
They're Sanskrit, from the Sanskrit language.
Mukunda was born next, and then the 2 youngest, Krishna and Jagadish. At night, the young boys slept with Suzanne, piled on top of each other on mattresses. During the day, releasing their pent-up energy, dancing, bouncing, their entire childhood homeschooled by their mother. For the 6 boys, recess was roller skating indoors, back and forth in that tiny hallway. But the most important lesson every day, Oscar's rules. Number 1, the boy's hair was never cut.
He always encouraged us to have long hair.
When you have long hair, you are powerful. He was like, be a powerful person.
Rule number 2, stay inside.
What did he say would happen to you if you went outside?
He would say to us, so outside there's good people and there's bad people. And I would always explain, I'd like to keep you all here, protected.
Here, there were rules about what rooms they could enter. In the apartment, there's a kitchen, a bedroom, 2 bathrooms, and 3 more rooms. But as if 6 rooms for 9 people wasn't cramped enough, the children were forbidden from entering 2 of them. Mukunda says it stems from his father's fear. He banned the boys from rooms that shared walls with the neighbors.
He didn't want anyone to hear what we were doing or that we were laughing, or he basically didn't want anyone to know we were here.
That's why even one of the 2 bathrooms was off limits.
We weren't allowed to use this one, only this one.
And this one would just sit empty?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody used it?
Nobody used it.
Wow.
Naranya, one of the twins, says the restrictions were the most extreme for their mother.
She had the worst of it from all of us. She had more rules than we did. Any little thing that she did wrong she was like put on trial. I was very much a frightened person. We all were.
He would not treat her like a happy husband with a happy wife.
How did it come to this? Suzanne, who grew up in the farm fields of the Midwest, met Oscar in the exotic jungles of Peru, hiking to Machu Picchu.
He really thought and acted in a much bigger way than most people.
They married within months, living first in a Hare Krishna preserve, later in a van, having baby after baby. But when they ended up at the New York housing project, Oscar shut the door and pocketed the only key.
You didn't argue, no, this is silly, we're overreacting.
At that time, I didn't have a lot of control about the choices that I made or could make.
Suzanne had no contact with her family. Her sisters say she left no trail, no address, no phone number.
We just felt there was no way of knowing. How do we find out? I mean, we had to hire a detective.
No one had seen her.
Suzanne was hiding in plain sight. Oscar didn't work, and the family survived on welfare and the money she earned from homeschooling. All her time was spent tending to her 7 children inside.
It must have been deeply painful to see your kids growing up confined.
Well, sometimes it was hard because I thought I wanted them to be out in the fresh air because that's what I did as a child.
The children's only view of the wonders of the world were through Suzanne's memories of the life she used to have.
When my children were younger, we would sit and look out the window and I could compare it to the view on a mountaintop. Those big buildings might be other mountains. It was kind of fun. It broke the monotony a little bit.
Oscar would grant rare outings with more rules. They were told where to look, how far to walk, and never to interact with strangers.
We would go out in the summers mostly because it was nice out.
So how many times a year would you go out?
sometimes
Once.
5.
One?
One, and then, yeah, then 1 year, not at all. And then the winter came, and
We never went out in the winter.
The only freedom Oscar did allow, what would become the boys' one true escape, was movies.
How many hours a day would you watch these movies?
All day.
A whole day?
every day.
How many movies have you seen?
Let's just say over 10,000 movies.
You've seen over 10,000 movies?
Like, at least.
With no outside friends, no outside activities, it was total immersion, an obsession.
If I didn't have movies, life would be pretty boring. It makes me feel like I'm living, sort of, because it's kind of magical.
They were 6 brothers locked in a cramped apartment for 14 years. Their father gave them free rein to just one thing:
I don't shine shoes anymore.
movies. They were the boys' only window to the outside world, losing themselves in the wilderness of The Last of the Mohicans, the streets of Sicily in The Godfather, and the gritty New York underworld in Goodfellas.
I wonder about you sometimes, Henry. You may fold under questioning.
The films were more than entertainment. They were salvation.
Movies taught us, like, sort of how to speak to one another.
Talking to me?
How you interact with another person, then have an opinion.
Marvin, what do you make of all this?
With hours, days, weeks, months, years to fill, they would watch their favorites again and again.
The Dark Knight,
Pirates of the Caribbean,
Blade Runner, Taxi Driver, Apocalypse Now, Citizen Kane,
No Country for Old Men, Halloween,
Gone with the Wind, Sunset Boulevard, The Thing.
At some point, simply watching is not enough.
Mr. White.
The boys decide to become a part of the movies they love. In the confines of their tiny apartment, their imagination runs wild.
Every time my fingers touch brain, I'm Superfly TNT.
I kind of thought, why don't we do those films? Be those characters.
They painstakingly transcribe every word, spending weeks creating handwritten scripts, homemade costumes, and props.
Inglourious Bastards. How many scenes in the movie is this?
Well, this is a whole movie.
This is the whole movie?
Every word that is uttered in that movie.
And that's every word that's uttered in Pulp Fiction?
Yes.
Yes.
You've
Also
got to be
sound
kidding
waves.
me.
With every line, every hand gesture, every expression memorized, they assign parts and perform. Their only audience is themselves. Scenes from Reservoir Dogs, from Pulp Fiction,
Don't be looking at me like that, right? I can feel your look.
Batman, every punch choreographed. Mukunda is the main prop master, creating costumes from anything he can get his hands on.
We got an oxygen tank from No Country for Old Men. Inside, if you want to feel that, that is little Milo tin cans. It's like a Raisin Bran or Quakers, and I would just tape it all together, get the shape, and just color all of it.
That's great.
When we do it, I have to get in the mind of the character. Play Batman because it's a responsibility, sort of. That sounds pathetic to some people but to us and to our world, it is very personal.
Did you guys ever look out the windows at other people on the street and wonder what their lives were like?
It was kind of like, oh, look at that. That's a school bus. These kids are going to school, just like in the movies.
As for the neighbors they never saw,
We make up characters out of them. Like if we hear yelling or like loud music, we'd be like, that sounds a little bit like Goodfellas partying. Maybe Robert De Niro was living in there. We just imagine a lot.
Sort of what you miss out on, you make up in fantasy.
for 14 years they are confined, from first teeth to first words, young boys becoming young men. As they grow, the 4 rooms they live in grow smaller. The claustrophobia becomes stifling.
It's scary to want to break out of that box.
Then, in 2009, their prison shrinks even further. Oscar, perhaps sensing his growing son's growing restlessness, covers the windows that winter with blankets, sealing off the one remaining link to the outside world.
When that was happening, we couldn't even get sunlight looking out the window. I started getting a little like, all right, enough is enough.
It is 2010. The tension in the tiny apartment has mounted.
It starts to reach like a volcano point where something is starting to erupt.
Mukunda's name means giver of freedom, and one morning he wakes up determined to seize his own.
It was a Saturday morning, and I just thought, you know what? I've got to do it today. It's now or never.
He waits for his father to leave the apartment to buy groceries.
I wouldn't dare do it when he was around.
He goes to his prop closet and selects a mask to hide his face. He is frightened his father will see him on the street. The mask he chooses, Michael Myers from the movie Halloween.
There's no way he would be able to recognize it was me.
Right.
And then 15-year-old Mukunda opens the front door. Down the 16 flights of stairs. And out into the air.
The moment I opened the door, my heart pounded so hard. I was like,
Outside without his father for the first time in his life.
what do I do? I'm out in the open. It's all out there. There's no going back now.
He doesn't even know his own address.
I'll know how to get back as long as I keep the building, our building with my side.
So you just kept looking back here, sort of as your touchstone.
Yes.
But you kept walking. I
did.
mean...
And as I recall, I knew which window was ours, and I saw my brothers. Like
So you came down to this corner, turned this way?
I turned left, yes.
Turned left.
Were you nervous?
Really nervous.
Still wearing the Halloween mask, he goes into a bank, a supermarket. He is terrified, and terrifying to those who see him. It doesn't take long for someone to call police. Mukunda is escorted away in an ambulance. For most, a nightmare. For Mukunda, it's his first real-life adventure.
I was in an ambulance for the first time. I was never in an ambulance. I was like, whoa, look at this. This is just like a movie set or something. I'm like, they got the siren on? This is pretty wild.
Because Mukunda won't speak, police think he's unbalanced. They take him to Bellevue Hospital, the psychiatric ward.
What was it like being in the hospital?
Fun, I have to say.
Fun?
It was, because I interacted with, like, people for the first time.
He spends a week at the hospital, and when he returns, there is a cataclysmic shift in the apartment. Oscar now knows he's no longer in control.
Basically, it was that first walk down this first sidewalk that broke the spell, really, over the entire family, right?
It is a walk on Broom Street.
After 14 years of claustrophobia and confinement, Mukunda Angulo has broken free of his father's rules, liberating his brothers who now follow. The youngest is 11, the oldest 18. While their father stays in his bedroom behind closed doors, his sons take their first steps outside their apartment without him.
What were those first forays out like?
Pure excitement.
Pure excitement.
Yeah.
They are tentative at first, traveling in a pack, not going far from home. Their senses are heightened. A simple stroll is supercharged. They revel in their new freedom.
Having independence feels really great if you have never had independence your whole life. It's so powerful. You know, you feel like I can survive. I have much more confidence. I can make it.
Even as they're breaking free, their lifeline remains the movies.
It's like 3D, man. It's very fresh out here.
In their trips out, they wear a form of armor, the suits of the cast of Reservoir Dogs. With their long hair and sunglasses, they're hard to miss. And in their first week out, New Yorker Crystal Moselle spots them and does a double take.
I was just like walking down the street, and all of a sudden it was 6 of them, and I ran after them. There's like nothing I could have done.
The brothers who consider movies their religion ask Crystal what she does for a living. The first person they meet, and she is a movie maker. It feels like fate.
We shared the same passion. It immediately made a connection from there.
They arrange to meet, and soon the brothers invite her for dinner at their apartment. Crystal has no idea she is the first outsider ever allowed into the apartment.
You're actually our first guest to be invited over.
Really?
Yeah.
Ever?
Yeah. Never invited anybody over before.
Why not?
Because we didn't have friends.
He had revealed to me that I was one of their first friends, and that was a huge, like, what?
You didn't know that?
I was your first friend?
Crystal only gradually learns about the confines of the boys' childhood. She starts documenting as they experience life on the outside for the first time. Their first bike ride. First visit to a restaurant.
How's that salad?
That's Mukunda 5 years ago.
Is it gross?
No, it's very tasty and very chemical.
Chemical?
Yeah, tastes like a chemical.
And perhaps most momentous, their first time to a movie theater to see Christian Bale starring in The Fighter.
That's awesome. That's exciting. I play that guy in The Dark Knight. Batman Begins.
You wanted a front row seat to them experiencing the world for the first time.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Oh, it was wonderful. They would express, oh, we've never been to the beach. You want to go to the beach? I said, okay, let's go. I'll follow you to the beach.
At the beach, for the first time, they feel the sand in their toes, taste the salt in the air.
It's kind of like this baptism as they're like crashing into the water for the first time, and it's very beautiful.
How did they grow and change as they began to go out and experience life?
They slowly learned how to interact with people.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Where are you guys from?
The only way I knew how to make conversation with anybody was, you like movies? Yes, I do. What's your favorite? I like this movie. Oh, I like that too.
Learning the art of conversation and the art of movie making, Crystal teaches them about cinematography.
Tripod.
You know, the three-legged.
Yeah. That's Govinda, one of the twins, his hair long, dutifully taking notes.
And how do you review over what you're recording?
There's something that's so open about them that you don't see every day when you're in New York City.
Crystal films for nearly 5 years. A friend tells her the boys look like a pack of wolves, and the nickname sticks. All the while, they become more accustomed to the outside world.
What were the differences between what you had thought life was like from watching the movies and what you really experienced life as being?
One, not everybody's trying to kill you.
In movies, everybody understands what the other is saying, and they have like a reply to it. But in real life, it's like, could you repeat the question? Could you repeat it? Like, I'm sorry, I didn't get that. And not everything's a plan, in other words, in life. And in movies,
everybody's not following a script.
Exactly.
So everything moves slower.
You need life to be edited a little bit better, right?
Their freedom brings transformation. The youngest, Jagadish and Krishna, changed their names to Eddie and Glenn, and 4 of the brothers cut off their long hair.
So cutting your hair off was a rite of advancing.
Right, like
leaving the past behind.
It's like okay, we're starting a new life. This is how I'm moving forward.
Who did you see change the most over the course of the time you spent with them?
I think their mother.
Really?
Their mother really broke free out of the situation that they're in, and it was very beautiful to see that happen.
I am not finding that place that has the donuts. That's what I'm looking for.
You've gone from living where you never were allowed to go out unless Oscar said you could, to now going out every single day.
Yes, I feel now like I've stepped back into how I really know myself.
Do you have regrets? Do you wish that you had claimed that part of yourself sooner?
In some ways I have regrets, but in many ways it's been a journey for me. And I feel like it's been a learning process. And so I can't discount any part of it because it's my life. And that would be like saying, oh, I wish I hadn't lived for those years. And I never feel that.
Suzanne's biggest step, reaching out to the family she had cut off. In the documentary, she calls her mother. She hasn't heard her voice in more than 20 years.
Well, I just want to say that I love you so much, Mom. You know, I just love you so much.
That must have felt amazing to talk to her again.
Yeah, I just am so glad to have her and my family in my life again.
I spent years running from what I really wanted. Everybody look to the right.
The documentary The Wolfpack has won awards on the festival circuit, and the Angulo brothers have gone from seclusion to stardom. The brothers, who once couldn't imagine speaking to strangers, no less girls, pose with movie stars.
They really are so articulate and so charming and entertaining.
You must be very proud of them.
Yes.
But one thing has not changed at all. After a night on the town rubbing elbows with celebrities, they return home to the same apartment that had been their prison. Their father, Oscar, still lives there. Suzanne remains married to him, but says he no longer makes the rules.
Are things different now with you and your husband?
Yes, our relationship has probably done like a 180.
In our visits to the apartment, Oscar remained behind this door, unseen.
This is my parents' room.
That's your
I
parents'
think
room?
they're in there.
He did not respond to our request for comment. The relationship between Oscar and his sons is irreversibly damaged. Only one brother now speaks to him. The others, like Naranya, are desperately saving money to find a way to move out.
I have no interaction with him at all. As far as I'm concerned, he's dead. I'm trying to move out because living under the same roof just haunts me every second.
Naranya's twin brother Govinda feels differently.
I've grown to kind of forgive him, because if I was always living in regret and just hating on the way things were done, I probably wouldn't be able to move on.
22-year-old Govinda is the one brother who has scraped together enough money to move out.
Hello.
He shares an apartment in Brooklyn with 3 roommates.
This is sort of the general movie area.
The wall is adorned by a poster of his favorite movie, Taxi Driver.
De Niro, who was one of my all-time favorite actors.
He says the film reminds him of how he used to feel before breaking out.
All my life needed was a sense of someplace to go.
It's a feeling Govinda has finally shed. 5 years after he was scribbling notes on filmmaking, learning how to press record,
Action.
Govinda is now working as a cinematographer on his first independent movie.
Now that we're on set and this movie's happening, it's sort of a surreal feeling. Almost I can't believe it.
After years inside, all the brothers have been making up for lost time, eagerly pursuing their passions. Naranya works as an environmental activist.
I spent a lot of time going to rallies, going to protests.
Eddie, the youngest, is an aspiring musician obsessed with 80s music. Bhagavan, the oldest, is a yoga instructor, and he's a teacher with the New York Hip Hop Dance Conservatory.
2.5 years ago, if you asked me to dance, I would not do it. I was very self-conscious. So hip hop dance, it allowed me to be more comfortable.
And Mukunda is working as a production assistant. He's also directing short films.
And action, Lindsay.
This one stars his family.
Look directly at the camera. Wave.
Cut. That was good. Moving on.
And all the brothers are still obsessed with the movies, what got them through the darkest times. So we decided to make a dream of theirs come true. We organized a lunch, making sure to hide what was really on the menu. A surprise introduction to a man who was their lifeline in those dark days locked in their apartment.
Hey guys, I need all your attention for 1 second. I have somebody I want you to meet. Wolfpack, meet Robert De Niro.
Their reaction, Oscar-worthy displays of shock.
Robert.
Mr. Robert De Niro, it's an honor to meet you. Robert.
Mukunda.
They're tongue-tied, starstruck.
Naranya.
We were just talking about you.
And after they sit to break the ice, Naranya asks the question Crystal taught them to use when they first started talking to strangers.
What are some of your favorite movies?
I like, Lawrence of Arabia, On the Waterfront. What's the one with Montgomery Clifton, Elizabeth Taylor?
Place in the Sun.
Place in the Sun.
Wow.
You've seen more movies than I have, I'm sure.
Just days before meeting Robert De Niro, the boys had actually filmed a tribute to him, dressed in character, down to the mole on his cheek, reenacting their favorite scenes.
Get it out of here, right? I don't care where you got it. Just bring it on back from where you got it.
Never rat on your friends, and always keep your mouth shut.
You don't hear the word no very often, do you? I hear it all the time. It's more like, no, please, no. Why didn't you make your payment last week? What are you talking about?
I made my payment last Tuesday. What are you talking about? You guys know the films that I've done better than I do, probably.
They're all smiles for their photo op, and for the Wolfpack, a simple cheese won't do.
Everybody say Johnny Boy.
Johnny Boy.
Where's that from?
Main Street.
Once their idol leaves, the brothers erupt in joy and disbelief.
Everyone, please get in here.
Hey guys.
Oh, I'm so glad. You are so well going.
I'm going to remember this forever.
Another impossible dream is about to take flight. The Wolfpack brothers are boarding an airplane. Our cameras rolling as they begin their journey from New York to Michigan for an event more than 20 years in the making.
We are all on our way to meet our family on my mom's side.
We're all here.
A family they'd only heard of, never met.
Once the seatbelt signs on.
Nervous, excited.
It's alright.
5 years earlier, this is what Mukunda shared with filmmaker Crystal Mazel.
Do you know who any of your relatives are?
Never met him.
How come?
Because we've always been here.
Here in their cramped apartment, in which they were locked away for 14 years, the boys and their mother Suzanne, cut off from her family for decades.
I have not seen Suzanne for 23 years. They tried to find out because where she was and no luck. It's overwhelming. If we thought Suzanne was dead, the love has not stopped.
And now 2020 has arranged for everyone to meet.
Here we go. Ready.
75 miles from Chicago, a first glimpse into their mother's past.
So this is how you grew up. All
Yes.
this land. So
Understood. play in woods like this and build forts.
Their destination? A little town on the shores of Lake Michigan called Three Oaks. Its entire population is barely double that of the Wolfpack's housing complex. Suzanne's family has prepared a classic Midwestern picnic, tables loaded with food. They even made Wolfpack family t-shirts. And as the car pulls up,
Yay!
the enormity, the power of this moment is overwhelming.
Shoot. Look at that. There's everybody. Look at that.
Wait, I can't see.
Oh my gosh.
Oh dear. Oh my God. That's a lot of people.
The brothers who quietly endured so much to make it this far must gather the strength to take that final step.
Bro, hold my hand. I need your hand. Oh my God.
Let's go. Okay. Come on. Hi, everybody. True. Great.
Finally.
Yes.
I know a lot of people, will wonder, are these guys going to be okay?
I think we're going to be more than okay. I think we're going to be great.
Answer, absolutely.
You're survivors.
Hell yeah.
What made you guys so strong? I have to ask.
This one right over there. Mom. Mom's love.
Really? I don't think a mom could hear a nicer thing than that.
Yes. Yeah. That's true.
How do I get it back down?
The day ends at this campground, Suzanne introducing her kids to a simple and sacred family ritual, roasting marshmallows by the fire.
The key to doing it is like you put it on the edge of the fire where it's hot and you turn them so they like toast light brown.
At long last, the Wolfpack are back in the wild, their future as wide open as the night sky.
I spent years running from what I really wanted.
Nobody's been impacted negatively by that experience of having to be inside all that time.
Well, no, we don't have time for that. We don't like, hey, life's too short. Live it up. Just live it up. Live every moment.
The Wolfpack's new lives have expanded far beyond their small apartment. They are now a whirlwind of activity and adventure.
It's been a really fun ride. It's been nonstop. A lot of great experiences.
They've seen the stars on Hollywood Boulevard and met them, posing for pictures with actors like Christian Slater and Mark Ruffalo. And the Wolfpack has been traveling the world, their press tour taking them from Abbey Road to the Coliseum, each new place a touchstone to a treasured movie.
London has reminded us of films such as A Lucky Man or Harry Potter.
And there have been plenty of firsts. Govinda has a new passion.
Experiencing crazy roller coasters. It's one of the most exciting things you can do.
Hello, everyone.
And Mukunda, in addition to giving speeches, is learning another skill.
I'm like learning to drive a car.
And girls?
Yeah, there's been a couple of romances in our lives.
But the biggest voyage only took a few miles. Naranya, who desperately dreamed of leaving the family's Manhattan apartment, has finally moved out to Brooklyn. And he's cut his hair. A freeing gesture that, it turns out, is a nod to yet another movie.
He just wanted the Serpico look. He's been wanting that for a long time. He just wanted a beard to go with it.
He's now the second brother to be out on his own.
So that day that you're walking en masse, the group of you, down the street, and this one comes running after you, what did you think?
We ignored it a little bit at first. First thing she ever said was, "Are you all brothers?" And we all turned.
They were like right there.
Yeah, right here. And then she was like, "Where are you from? Who are you?" "Oh, you're into us."
When did you find out that she's a filmmaker?
Oh, our brother is with me. You want to take over?
He said to me, what is it that you do for a living? And I said, I'm a filmmaker. And then you said, we're interested in getting into the business of filmmaking.
And I think that's sort of on.
And at that point, you stopped trying to cross the street and turning your back on her after you answered her questions and really engaged.
And I really remember this specifically, Crystal saying, "We should keep in contact. What's your number?" You're like, I kind of don't remember my number. Let me give you my card. Let me write my number down here.
And so who called her?
I called her first, and then
How long did you wait?
I think it was a few days afterwards.
We called
and we got back to her.
Gotcha.
I'm gonna tease.
In English, please.
Excuse me.
In English, please.
I'm gonna choose.
I'd like to apologize to Leatherface's mom, Michael Myers' mom, and Ghostface's mom. It's all my fault. This is my project. I'm so scared.
What's in the case? My guitar.
You can go. It's him, and Mariatti.
Gracias.
Come outside, please. Now, wait a minute. Sit down, Zero. You can't arrest him simply because he's a bloody immigrant. He hasn't done anything wrong.
A hard-working New Mexico family.
My dad was up at 4 in the morning, wouldn't go down till 10 o'clock at night.
She was always the type of person to just help everybody.
Is murdered on Father's Day.
My parents are dead.
They were covered in so much blood.
That was the worst I've ever seen.
Police uncover a loving family.
He was a shaken baby. We were told he may never walk again.
With a startling criminal connection.
She has a history of burglaries.
And a jaw-dropping revelation.
I absolutely was shocked. I didn't think I have ever known anybody in my life who could do something that brutal.
To this day, I still can't understand how the person could do something this tragic, this gruesome.
They said, I know who did it, I know who did it.
A tiny New Mexico town home to just a few hundred families. A place filled with honest, hardworking people.
It's a very tight-knit community. It's kind of one of those places where everybody knows everybody.
On Father's Day 2011, police receive a 911 call that shatters the early evening calm.
Santa Fe 911, where's your emergency?
Dancing boy! Carl! Hurry! Your dad in Orange!
Okay, tell me exactly what happened.
I don't know, I just my parents put the answer to the phone, and my parents didn't come out, and I walked over to check right over the people was in the yard.
Okay. I can't hear you when you're yelling. Try not to yell into the phone, I can't understand you.
My parents are dead.
The caller is a 35-year-old woman named Cherie Ortiz Rios. Officers arrive at the property she shares with her parents, Lloyd and Dixie Ortiz. Police enter the home occupied by Cherie's parents and her brother to investigate, starting with the master bedroom.
Dad observed a female laying face down in her nightgown attire, deceased.
The brutality that was involved was unspeakable.
She had some trauma on the right side of her temple region.
Police believe this is Cherie's 53-year-old mother, Dixie Ortiz.
As you walk out through the main door to the bedroom, there's a couple of steps up into a kitchen. That's where a deceased male was laying face down. That was probably the worst I've ever seen. There was several defects in his head and shoulder area.
Cherie tells police that this is the body of her 21-year-old brother, Stephen.
As you walk back out the room to the rear of the residence, there was another deceased male laying face down. And he had several injuries to his upper torso and his head region.
The dead man is Cherie's 58-year-old father, Lloyd. Detectives called in the medical examiner to take charge of the bodies. For now, they can only speculate about the cause and time of death.
There were limitations on how well we could examine the injuries because they were covered in so much blood.
It looked like something that had penetrated all of their bodies. So at that point, led us to believe that they were actually shot with some type of a firearm.
While the medical examiner carefully removes the bodies, a forensics team meticulously looks for evidence.
We did not find any shell casings. There wasn't a gun located. There was nothing that indicated that we had our murder weapon at the scene. We have no physical evidence as far as some type of a fingerprint. There weren't any footwear impressions in any of the blood. Maybe we can get some DNA,
But we don't know that initially. That has to be sent to the lab for testing. With this type of crime scene, generally there's only a couple different types of motive. It's love, money, or anger. So we have to look into those. Lloyd's wallet was on the counter right next to where Stephen was lying in the kitchen. It had money in it. It didn't look like somebody was in there to steal from them.
There's no evidence to suggest this is a robbery, so police consider whether other motives could have been at play.
Who would stand to gain something from killing 3 people on Father's Day in their house?
Police need to learn more about the victims and their family. They turn to Cherie, who lives just steps away.
On the 2/3 of the property, Lloyd, Dixie, and their son, Stephen, lived, and the other third was occupied by Lloyd and Dixie's daughter, Cherie, her husband, Jesse, and their 2 children, Catalina and Robert.
When her sister arrives, a despondent Cherie can barely keep it together.
I remember my sister running up to me and telling me, that my mom and my dad and my brother were dead.
There were nothing I could do or say to make it better for her. 'Cause I love my sister so much, so much.
Cherie and Angela choke back tears as they tell police all about the most important people in their lives.
My mom and dad were the best parents that I could ever ask for. They were always there, always accepted us for who we were, always stood by our side, no matter what.
Lloyd was a tile contractor who was popular in the town.
My dad was amazing. Up at 4 in the morning, wouldn't go down till probably 10 o'clock at night every day.
Lloyd had been married to Dixie for 34 years. She worked in a nursing home.
She didn't even think of that as being a job. It was just who she was.
Dixie's selfless, caring manner didn't stop with her work. In 1989, when their daughters were just teens, she and Lloyd took in a baby in need.
Stephen was 7 months old when he came into our home as a foster child. He was a shaken baby. His left side of the body was paralyzed. He had cerebral palsy. We were told that he may never walk, talk.
I would grab him out of the crib and stick him right next to me in bed, and he would sleep right next to me. I just loved him so much.
As he grew, the family's love helped transform Stephen into a strong and happy little boy.
Walking, potty training, the developmental milestones, they took a lot longer for him to reach, but he reached every single one of them.
Stephen was part of our church, and he was such an absolute joy. He would greet everybody. Everybody in church loved him. He made it a point to talk to everybody. He was quite a young man.
Stephen, Lloyd, and Dixie's lives have been cut tragically short. But why would someone murder such a loving family? Police find one possible reason: growing outside.
There were several marijuana plants that were being grown. There was a fenced-off area where there was 17 plants growing.
These plants were not visible unless you were directly over them. It was a very tight boxed-in area that was padlocked.
A marijuana crop under lock and key outside the family home piqued detectives' interest. Had they just uncovered an illegal drug operation?
My parents had a medical marijuana card for my brother and a grower's license. So they were legally growing medical marijuana for my brother.
My brother had 2 brain surgeries to relieve some of the pressure in his brain, and so they prescribed medical marijuana to him to help relieve the headaches he was having. They were pretty debilitating at times.
The family had known that Lloyd was growing the marijuana for Stephen, and the family would smoke some of the marijuana.
While the marijuana was being grown legally, detectives suspect that it could have attracted the attention of the wrong people.
Was this some type of a drug-related incident?
Police become even more concerned when Cherie and her husband Jesse relay a story about a few suspicious characters they heard outside their home on the night of the murder.
They indicated that they were watching a movie that ended between 1:30 and 2 o'clock in the morning. Their dog started barking, and Jesse got up and walked to the front window. He saw a car that was parked outside.
He heard a kid yelling out there. He heard somebody say, "Hurry up, come on." And he was like, "There's somebody out there." And so he went back in and even grabbed a gun. And he got in his truck and he drove his truck toward that car.
Coming up, the autopsy reveals an unexpected cause of death.
It's not generally your weapon of choice. It's extremely violent, it's brutal.
And the town is stunned when the killer is revealed.
People were in disbelief. As a pastor, it was hard for me to even fathom.
Hours after Lloyd, Dixie, and Stephen Ortiz are found dead, police are hunting for the driver of a car seen outside the home the night before the murders.
We interviewed Lloyd and Dixie's daughter, Cherie, and she said that her husband, Jesse, saw a car that was parked outside and to the left of the property. He had indicated that the vehicle was a gray car.
The dog started barking crazy. My husband, Jesse, he came out and even got in his truck.
Cherie tells police Jesse followed the vehicle in his truck. But when detectives interview Jesse, he tells them a completely different story.
In Jesse's interview, he had failed to mention that he actually left the house that evening.
You never left the house?
No.
Why would your wife say you left the house?
That I left the house.
Why would she say that?
Maybe because I was outside or something.
She said she heard you leave the house. Why would she say that?
I don't know.
It was pretty concerning that he would forget one of the biggest details of that evening with his involvement.
As detectives continue to press Jesse, he suddenly remembers details from the night before.
Jesse.
You know what? I might have left the house. When I seen the car parked. You know what? That is correct. That is correct. You see the issue? Yeah, I do. I forgot about that.
It's something you don't just forget about, Jesse.
Well, I'm serious, man.
Man to man. You know where I'm going. Right. It's time to start talking.
I did. I do remember, because I remember going back down there to get my keys. And I did get in my truck. And I drove towards the dead end that way.
What happened then?
I passed by.
Why would you not confront somebody right there?
Because I didn't expect anything.
Jesse, lying to me, dude.
I'm not lying to you, bro. I'm telling you the truth.
Jesse's changing story now has police eyeing him as a suspect. And when they ask him about his relationship with his in-laws, they think they may have hit upon a motive.
We found out something very alarming. There was some stuff in the close past that had caused some family tension between Lloyd and Jesse. And we knew at one point Lloyd was embarrassed of the way that Cherie and Jesse's property looked, so he actually built a fence in between the two properties so he didn't have to look at it anymore. So we knew there was some tension there.
Police can't rule out that tension in the family could have boiled over. Could Jesse have slipped out of the house and committed 3 heinous murders over a minor family squabble? To get to the truth, police grilled a couple about where they were the night of the murder.
They told us the timeline of where they were. They went to a casino. They were there for X amount of time, drove to their residence. They put in a movie right away. They were able to identify almost minute for minute of what they did that entire day, which is kind of unusual.
And when police ask Cherie about finding the bodies, she tearfully gives them a detailed account of the horror that unfolded.
And I walked in and I was like, "Mom." And then I walked over to her to shake her, and her head was blown. And so I ran to the kitchen to check for my brother and my dad, and I thought it was my dad laying on the floor in his underwear because his face was so blown off. And so I ran home screaming for my husband. And my husband went back and he said, "Honey, that's Stephen in the kitchen. Your dad's dead in the backyard."
Cherie's story is plausible, but one thing she can't explain is something she told police when she called 911.
They're dead. They have gunshot wounds to the head. They're dead. They've been dead since this morning.
Cherie said that she knew if she would have went over there, she could have saved him that morning, which told me that she had intimate knowledge of when the homicides actually occurred, which pretty concerning. How would she know that? We didn't know that timeline of when they were actually killed.
Detectives are no longer suspicious of just Jesse. Is it possible that the Ortiz's own daughter could be involved as well?
We did obtain DNA samples from Sherry and Jesse to try and analyze to see if there was anything that could be mashed.
Police searched Cherie and Jesse's home, hoping to find a physical link to the murder. With so much activity in the tiny town of El Rancho, news of the crime spreads.
My wife and I raced down to the property. When we had got there, there was quite a few people there. Cherie was just outside herself. She was just hysterical.
Detectives can't help but wonder if Cherie's tears are genuine, yet they're unable to find any physical evidence to link Cherie or Jesse to the murders. When the autopsy report comes back the next day, they hope the results will help them shed some light on the mystery.
I actually did attend the autopsy, and during the course of the autopsy, the pathologist informed us that the wounds sustained were the result of impact trauma. They were killed with a pickaxe. Stephen Ortiz, the son of Lloyd and Dixie, received 17 blows to the head from the pickaxe. Evidently, the victims were beaten long after they were already deceased.
The amount of force that was used to cause this was extreme. My initial reaction was, who had this much anger to want to kill him in such a gruesome manner?
After receiving the autopsy report on a horrific triple homicide in El Rancho, New Mexico, detectives have just discovered that the Ortiz family was killed with a pickaxe. Now that police know what to look for, they quickly set out to find the murder weapon.
One of the agents remembers seeing a Maddox-style pickaxe lying in an adjacent field to the west of the residence. So we immediately went to the scene and found our pickaxe, covered in blood. Processed it to the crime scene lab in Santa Fe and waited for results.
There was a lot of hope that there was going to be potential evidence that would link the assailant to the pickaxe.
There was nothing. There was nothing there. We got DNA that was identified on the pickaxe from the 3 victims. Nobody else.
Still, the murder weapon does tell police something about the killer.
It would take a great deal of force to cause that type of injury.
Police had to consider whether either of their suspects were strong enough to commit the crime. Jesse was capable. Was Cherie? While police search for answers, the small town of El Rancho is gripped with fear.
The whole community was on high alert. This kind of crime is very unusual for that area.
All we knew was that there were 3 dead people that the community loved, and nobody knew why and how.
Police continue to look into the alibis of the main suspects, Cherie Ortiz and her husband Jesse Rios, who said they'd been to a casino that night. Investigators see if their story can be verified.
They were seen on surveillance video at a gas station, and then they went to a casino.
This supports the couple's claims. Investigators also track what they did the rest of the evening.
We were able to pinpoint the length of time that it would take to drive from the casino to their house.
The timeline puts them in their home, right next door to the murders, at the time of the crime. But it's not nearly enough evidence to pursue a case. Police hope to utilize the publicity surrounding the murders and make an appeal for tips.
Everybody wanted to say who they thought it was, but didn't have any merit behind any of the stuff they were coming forward with.
Detectives also combed through their witness interviews and hit on a name they hadn't considered before.
Initially, Angela had mentioned that Nicholas Ortiz was a 16-year-old, just a regular kid in the community. Cherie had a son that was Nicholas's age, and they went to school together.
Nick Ortiz had a positive relationship with the family. There's no relation, by the way, between Nick Ortiz and the three Ortizes who were victim. It's just same last name.
Nicholas's family lived right up the road from us, and that's how him and my son had become friends.
He was having some troubles at home. Eventually, my sister opened up her home to him, gave him his own room.
He would go over next door to Lloyd and Dixie's house. They would give him money. They took him to the flea market. They took him everywhere. So they basically just treated him like he was one of the family.
But the transition to family member wasn't all smooth.
My husband and I had caught Nicholas going through our drawers. We had just started noticing a little bit of money missing. Things moved. So we started giving him an allowance every week for the chores he was doing as well.
Nick's troubles extended to school, too.
Nick had come home from school, and you could tell he had been punched in the face and was kind of beat up. I freaked out. Oh my God, who did this to you? He said, I joined a gang with some friends of mine, and I had to let them beat me up. And I was like, okay, so now today we're going to have the anti-gang talk. And I mean, we did.
The family tells police that joining a gang was just one example of the problems Nick brought to their home.
One night, my father had asked my son to cut down a plum tree that was dead in his backyard. And when they went out there, Nick was hiding behind some raised flower beds they had in their backyard. And the backyard was a secured area for the two little dogs they had, so both gates were locked from the inside. So he had to have jumped the fence to get back there.
Nick basically jumped up and kind of went towards him, in a joking manner, like to scare him. And Lloyd wasn't impressed by it. He didn't think it was funny.
After stealing from the family and joining a gang, this was the final straw for Lloyd.
He basically told Nick that he was not welcome at that property ever again.
It made us feel on guard and very uncomfortable, and we think it's best that it's time for him to move back home. I then text Nicholas and told him that he could come and pick up all the clothing and furniture that we had purchased for him over that time period, and he could take it home with him. I never really saw him again after that.
Could the Ortiz's rejection of Nicholas lead him to kill? Had he murdered Lloyd, Dixie, and Stephen in cold-blooded revenge? The police bring in Nick for questioning.
Do you know anything about this case?
Police in El Rancho, New Mexico have a new suspect in the murders of Lloyd, Dixie, and Stephen Ortiz. An unrelated 16-year-old named Nicholas Ortiz.
Do you know anything about this case that could help us?
I don't. The only thing that I've heard was what people have told me from the news.
He came off as this calm kid that didn't do anything wrong. He was just kind of like your baseline kid.
Detectives confront Nicholas about his speedy exit from the Ortiz home.
Lloyd just told you. What exactly did he say? You remember?
Yeah, telling me that I effed up my trust with them, not to go near them anymore or anything. I said, okay, fine. So what you guys want to do? And that was really the last time we spoke.
Okay. How did you feel then?
The detectives ask where he was the night of the murder.
He said he was at home with his dad and sisters leading up to Father's Day. Between 12 and 1 o'clock, he woke his father up and wished him a happy Father's Day and went back to bed. And he was there when his mom got off of work, which was around 7:30 in the morning. Everything was corroborated as far as his alibi.
Not only does Nicholas have a solid alibi, his demeanor in the interview doesn't suggest he is the killer.
Do you think if you found out who did that?
If I found out who did it, I would call the police right away.
Police find people in the community who vouch for Nick.
Nicholas was part of our congregation. He was very, very gentlemanlike. He was kind. He was willing to help. He would stay late sometimes and help us pick up after the church.
Police cross Nicholas Ortiz off the suspect list. Then, 2 days after the murder, they get an urgent call from Cherie Ortiz.
I called the police and I told them we found out about a safe that was well hidden, enough where my sister and I didn't even know it existed. At my parents' house, my Uncle Walter had called me and said, I built your dad a secret piece of furniture that would hide a safe in it.
The unit was so well concealed, the police had not found it when they searched the house days earlier.
I said, I do not want to know any more until we contact the police. So we had to have it opened up there at the police station.
Inside was $80,000 in cash, as well as some of the life insurance paperwork.
That's when we found that my dad had been saving money for years. He had his retirement saved in there.
Cherie says she didn't know about the money, but police make a discovery that puts her claim in doubt.
We had learned through district court that the power of attorney had been given to Cherie at this point, and she was basically going to be the heir of hundreds of thousands of dollars in life insurance policies that Lloyd and Dixie had. And that $80,000 that was in the safe was part of a cash out from those life insurance policies.
Cherie says she didn't know about the insurance policy. The inheritance was large enough to give Cherie and Jesse a powerful motive for murder. But motive alone wasn't enough to arrest either one of them.
We have no physical evidence that could tie Cherie and Jesse to the crime.
The discovery of the safe also causes police to speculate on how the Ortizes had amassed so much money. Could it have anything to do with the marijuana growing on the property?
Kind of raised some concern to us as to why he was growing it. Are they possibly selling this stuff?
Detectives investigate whether Lloyd was secretly involved in trafficking. The answer comes back clear.
Nothing was taken from this house. It didn't even appear that whoever was there at the time knew that there was pot plants being grown behind this fence. And knowing anything about the industry of marijuana, there were smaller plants, they weren't mature. We were able to pretty much rule out that the gangs were tied in to this.
It's another blow for the investigation. And as days turn to weeks, detectives are no closer to catching those responsible.
Essentially, you do run out of leads or you run into dead ends. As frustrating as it was for us as investigators, it had to have been exponentially worse for the family.
I was on the phone with the police every single day asking, what have they heard? Anything new? What can I do to help? And we were always told, nothing. There's nothing you can do.
I truly felt like they were not ever going to solve this case.
Then, 16 months after the murders, detectives get the break they've been praying for when they receive a call from the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Department.
In October of 2012, I had just gotten home from work and I got a call that there's somebody there that wants to give some information to me in reference to the homicide. And she was in jail. She said she just wants to get something off her chest.
A new tip will finally help solve the murders of Lloyd, Dixie, and Stephen Ortiz. The information comes from a young woman in the custody of Santa Fe police.
Ashley Ball was 24, and she has a history of burglaries and of drug use.
Ashley told officers that she knew something about the El Rancho murders. At that point, ears started to perk within law enforcement.
Before questioning Ashley, police look into her background.
Ashley grew up in El Rancho.
Ashley wasn't necessarily a troubled teen per se, but she got in trouble a lot.
From a young age was in and out of the detention center.
Lead detective Craig Bobnock questions Ashley about what she knows.
As I started explaining that it was a voluntary interview, she kept interrupting me saying, "I know who did it, I know who did it."
Ashley claims that on the night of the murder, she was smoking weed with her cousin, Jose Roybal, and a mutual friend.
They needed money, so they were gonna go hit the Ortiz's house. And I took them, I dropped them off, and I went back home.
She told me that she owned a gray 1997 Saturn car, two-door car, during the time of the homicide. So I immediately thought of Jesse's statement.
Cherie Ortiz's husband, Jesse Rios, had told police he saw a gray car driving slowly past their house late on the night of the murder. But it's what Ashley says next that grabs detectives' attention.
I got a call about maybe half an hour, 45 minutes later.
The call was from Jose's friend, and he needed a ride.
He got in my car, he had blood on his pants, he had a trash bag tied around his right foot. That's when he told me that he killed Stephen, Dixie, and Lloyd. He said he threw the pickaxe by the fence. He kept saying he killed him, he messed up, he killed him.
Ashley told me that the single person that killed the Ortiz family was Nick Ortiz.
Ashley's revelation is explosive. This family took in Nick when he was having trouble at home.
He stayed there for upwards of a couple of months, in which he got very close with the family. He would eat there, he would get off the school bus there. It was basically his home, and they took him in.
But police need to be sure Ashley's telling the truth. After all, she has a rap sheet, and their suspect has an alibi.
The information that Ashley Roybal provided had to have come from somebody who was actually there during the incident.
Ashley explains another detail that puts her at the scene.
Do they wear gloves? Do they care about fingerprints usually?
He had a sock on his hand.
He did have a sock on his hand?
Mm-hmm.
Police are hopeful they can find evidence in Ashley's car, but it's nowhere to be found.
It's 18 months later. She had said she had sold it to a tow company. The vehicle ultimately ended up at the shredder. Couldn't find it.
Investigators had to find another way to verify her story.
I received a lot of the phone logs, and that was my big piece of evidence at this point.
Cell phone records show the communication between Nicholas, Ashley, and her cousin Jose peaked around the time of the murders, so investigators immediately bring Nick back in to confront him with the evidence.
So I brought Nick in. He's in 100% denial of everything until I bring up the phone records.
I'm just going to show you, these are your texts between you and Jose. You're the orange and he's the white. That's how much you guys texted on Saturday night into Sunday morning. Is it surprising?
With all due respect to you guys and all that, I'd really like to just stop talking and go home.
Okay.
I want another chance at another interview with him, so I didn't want to ruin it. So we ended the interview.
Investigators' next move is to haul in Jose for questioning. Since he's a minor, they get permission from his parents to speak to him.
He was 15 at the time. He drank a lot. He had problems at home. He didn't have a good reputation.
Police talk to Jose, and he opens up.
Ashley dropped me and Nick off so we could go rob the house. She left. Nick told me he would go in. He wanted me to go in with him to go kill. And I told him no. I didn't want to. I was scared. He started walking towards the house. When he started walking towards the house, I ran to the river. I got to my house. And then Ashley and Nick show up. Nick just white as a ghost. I knew he had did it. He told me he had did it. He told me he did it.
Jose's story matches Ashley's, and suddenly police have two witnesses against Nicholas.
On February 12th, 2015, I got the approval from the district attorney to get an arrest warrant for Nick Ortiz. District court judge signed it and said, go pick him up.
Just like before, Nicholas remains uncooperative.
So I brought him in a copy of the criminal complaint. There were 5 total charges on the criminal complaint that I gave him. He said, I don't agree with 2 of these charges on here. And there were only 2 charges that were different from murder. So it's an admission to me. I knew I had him at that point. It was him.
With Nicholas taken into custody, detectives finally have some news for the Ortiz family.
I absolutely was shocked when the police said he had done this. I didn't think I have ever known anybody in my life who could do something like that brutal. I've never met anybody that could hurt people so grossly. It didn't make sense because that was not at all his personality when he lived with us.
People were in disbelief. As a pastor, it was hard for me to even fathom the fact that a young man like this could do something so tragic, this gruesome.
On June 15th, 2015, Nicholas goes to trial for massacring the Ortiz family.
Nick was a minor at the time. Given the fact that this was a heinous triple homicide, the judge did agree with my office that Nicholas should be charged as an adult.
When the trial starts, the prosecution is confident of a conviction until an unexpected development jeopardizes the whole case.
So in the middle of trial, we received a big surprise in Jose changing his testimony completely.
Nicholas Ortiz alone stands accused of a savage triple murder. His 2 former friends are taking plea bargains to testify against him. But just as prosecutors think it's a cut and dry case, the unexpected happens.
So in the middle of trial, we received a big surprise in Jose changing his testimony completely, pointing at Ashley as the individual who instructed them to kill the family.
Originally, the plan was to rob the Ortiz family, but according to Jose, Ashley had something more sinister in mind.
Jose Roybal testified that Ashley said, "Why don't you just kill them?"
It's a stunning statement, which the defense denies.
The case agent said, well, she said she didn't say that. And then the lawyer said, yeah, but Jose Roybal says she did, so somebody must be lying. Jose testified that Ashley gave the 2 boys socks to cover up their hands and plastic bags with Kleenex in them to cover up their feet so that they wouldn't leave traces there. He also said that she is the one that handed Nick the weapon.
According to Jose, in the early hours of June 19th, 2011, Ashley tells Nicholas and Jose it's time to put her unthinkable plan into action.
Ashley takes Jose and Nick to the Ortiz house, drops them off.
Jose got scared. He left. He ran home. Nick went towards the house.
He knocks on the back door. Lloyd Ortiz gets up out of bed. When he opens it, he's attacked by Nicholas with the pickaxe.
He didn't stop there. He went into the house and struck Dixie twice in her temple on the right side of her head with the pickaxe.
Nicholas moved on to the kitchen looking for the money, but he found Stephen instead.
Recognizing who is in his house, Stephen puts up a fight.
Nick delivers 17 blows to his head and body and kills him.
After Nick killed the 3 Ortizes, he didn't take anything. He got scared. So he just left. He walked out the door and called Ashley.
The revelations come as a shock to the victim's family.
Every day that we were at that trial, it was devastating because we learned things. I learned things that I didn't know. And I wish I hadn't, because it still haunts me.
Nick doesn't say a thing during the entire trial. It's Jose's word against Ashley's. How would their competing testimonies affect the jury?
The case was based almost entirely on Ashley and Jose's testimony, and that was a point of contention amongst people up until the sentencing.
After 3.5 days, I remember the jury went into the courtroom, and the foreperson said, no matter how much time you give us, we're just not going to come to a consensus. So the judge had no choice but to declare a mistrial.
It was horrible. It was devastating to me.
I felt like our hearts had been ripped out. We had all this hope.
Luckily, we have the opportunity to try him again, which we did.
17 months later, in December 2016, the case goes back to court.
Luckily, this time around, we proved to all 12 jurors that Nicholas Ortiz was the individual that killed those 3 people.
On October 28, 2019, Nicholas is sentenced to 25 years in prison. The victory rings hollow for the victim's loved ones.
What that felt like to me was each victim, my mom, my dad, and my brother, was only worth 8 years each. That's exactly what that is. It's a joke. That's not justice.
He's gonna do probably 12 to 15 years. No way. No way.
Ashley Roybal received a 20-year sentence. 6 years of that was suspended, so 14 years of incarceration.
Jose got full immunity for his testimony. He never got so much as probation.
Even though years have passed since the murders, their effects remain.
I would say I'm sorry to my parents and my brother. I'm sorry I wasn't there to help you. So I would say I love you and I miss you and I'm so sorry.
I want them to be remembered through their compassion.
On the day before the Jamisons disappear, they load their pickup truck and drive 30 miles to Oklahoma's Panola Mountain.
They were looking for property. They were looking to go buy 40 acres of land in a very rural area.
The Jamisons had actually learned about the land on the internet.
The parcel of land is situated in a remote area near an abandoned oil well.
It is really forested area. There's a lot of cliffs and ravines. That's what they like, though. They liked nature.
Those who know Bobby and Sherilyn Jamison say the couple looked at Panola Mountain as a fresh start, a new beginning for them and their young daughter.
They like to go look at land and imagine what if and fantasize about, building whatever, their dream businesses, homes, whatever.
Nikki Shenold has been Sherilyn Jamison's closest friend for more than 10 years.
She used to say a lot, you have to stand for something. I don't care what you stand for, but you have to stand for something. When she believed in something, she believed in it with her whole heart.
Friends and family say that when Sherilyn met Bobby Jamison in the summer of 2002, she knew he was the man for her.
Sherilyn decided right then and there that she liked him and she was interested. Bobby was a very gentle man. He was a good man. He didn't want to do anybody wrong.
They fell in love and got married in July of 2004. Later that summer, The Jamesons have a baby girl and name her Madison.
Madison was my son's, I guess, the best gift in his whole life.
Where are you going, Sissy? Looky, there you are on TV.
She was just, you know, a beautiful child, and her and I were best friends.
Madison.
For Bobby and Sherilyn, moving to Panola Mountain is the next step in building a simpler life. They're excited to join the small community living there, people who prize independence and self-sufficiency.
There's very few people that live up there. Even the ones that do have the bare minimum needs.
In order to have electricity, you have to really have a generator. Some people have septic systems, some people don't. It's a pretty rustic way of life.
When it comes to being off the grid, they're as close as you probably could be in this area.
On the morning the Jamesons start to explore the mountain where they hope to make their new home, they become lost in a maze of dirt roads. They run into one of the handful of people living up there and ask for directions.
He's out there working, he sees them come up. They're talking about buying land in that area. They're asking him questions about, okay, how do you build on a place, you know? How do you do the things that you need to do to be able to live in this area?
Bobby and Sherilyn get directions to the plot of land they're considering and decide to return the next day. The following morning, they drive back up the mountain, looking forward to seeing the place where they would live out their dreams.
I think they wanted to get away from everybody and be able to enjoy life on their own, not to have to answer to anybody.
It's pretty desolate, but I think desolate at that point was what they were looking for. They were just kind of looking to start anew and kind of get away from mainstream.
But the Jamesons' outing comes to an unexpected and mysterious end. 8 days later, hunters on four-wheelers find a locked truck parked on a dirt road near the top of Panola Mountain.
They peeked in the window and they saw a dog, and the dog was not doing so well. It had been locked in that truck for multiple days.
There wasn't any food for the dog. I mean, she was a survivor. She was a survivor to live through that.
There is no sign of the Jamesons anywhere on the hilltop. The Latimer County Sheriff's Office is called.
The call just came in that there's an abandoned truck up there. We broke the glass, got the dog out of there. We started to do an inventory on the vehicle to try to find out who they were.
When he began to find things in there, he knew that it was something definitely was wrong. They had cell phones in their truck, and their billfolds were there, her purse was there. You know, it was like they had just disappeared.
Because their coats, phones, and money are all left behind, police believe that Bobby and Sherilyn, along with their 6-year-old daughter, Madison, must be lost nearby in the woods.
After we started looking through everything, we were figuring, okay, they're up here.
It'd be quite easy for somebody to go out there and get bit by a snake and to not be able to get back to the truck and just to not be able to find your way around.
Police conduct an immediate search of the area surrounding the truck.
I had 5 or 6 deputies up there. Started calling out their names once we figured out who they were, trying to get some type of reply from them.
Rugged terrain makes the search doubly challenging.
You can get lost in the woods up there very easily unless you know where you're going. Because if you get in the midst of the trees, you can't see, very far ahead.
For law enforcement, time is of the essence.
There was a child missing. It was getting towards, middle, end of October. The nights were getting colder, and they didn't have their jackets with them because those were left in the truck.
We knew that they had been there 8 to 9 days, and you're getting on that timeline there to where You know, the chances of making it, we're at that point now.
Why hadn't anyone reported that the Jameson family had been missing for 8 days? The few people that saw their truck guessed that it belonged to a work crew.
There's a lot of wells up in that area, oil wells, gas wells. So a lot of people thought it was just people with an oil field that had come in.
Also, the Jamesons were a very private family, and it wasn't unusual for them to hunker down for several days or longer without speaking to friends or family members.
They had a habit of going out of town for extended periods of time and not really letting anybody know.
We could go a year and not talk and pick up the phone and act as if no time had gone by. I mean, that's just the relationship that we had. There's a lot of reasons why no one was alarmed.
Bobby and Sherilyn had also just pulled 6-year-old Madison out of school in preparation for homeschooling her.
The school didn't realize that, you know, Madison wasn't there because she had been taken out.
If it wasn't for the hunters coming down and telling the man that lived close to him about the vehicle, it could have been that much longer.
The sheriff's men on Panola Mountain realized that by now, the Jamesons could be anywhere. They used the family's cell phones to help reconstruct their last known movements.
As we checked the GPS from the phone, we had found out that they didn't spend the majority of the time parked there.
GPS coordinates lead police up a nearby hill, where they find footprints.
The 6-year-old's footprints were there, and that was obvious and easy to identify.
We were able to follow their footprints as well as follow the GPS on the camera up to a rock.
They determine that the Jamesons spend about 15 or 20 minutes up the hill from their truck, and remarkably, they find an eerie memento of the family's time on the hill.
The cell phone had a picture on it of Madison. They'd actually taken the picture on a small bluff that was just north of the location, maybe just a couple 100 yards.
It's the last picture that we have of Madison.
It appears to police that after taking the photo, the Jamesons return to their truck and start to leave. What happened next is shrouded in mystery. Then, while scouring the cab for more clues, a deputy sheriff makes a stunning discovery.
He said, "I've got something to tell you, and I think you need to come up here." And I said, "Okay, what's going on?" And he told me, he said, "Hey, there is a substantial amount of money in this vehicle."
A bank bag hidden beneath the driver's seat contains $32,000 in cash.
I wondered why. Why is all this money in here?
Anytime any large amount of cash is found in a vehicle, it raises a lot of red flags.
So at that moment, I said, okay, get everybody away, tape it off as if it was a crime scene. Don't know, what's going on yet, but tape it off.
We really weren't sure why they disappeared.
Coming up, evidence points to a violent event in the Jamesons' disappearance.
I think that they were probably forced out at gunpoint. I mean, why would you struggle if...
Bobby and Sherilyn Jameson and their 6-year-old daughter Madison have disappeared. Investigators find the family's truck abandoned in the Oklahoma backcountry.
A pickup sitting down there, with all of their goods and the dog locked inside the car was very suspicious.
Investigators are confounded by their most recent discovery, a hidden bank bag containing $32,000 in cash.
It's very unlikely that they would leave the vehicle there and lock their cell phones and their wallets and leave all of that in the car on their own accord, but we really didn't know.
Investigators are also baffled that the family dog was apparently left to die in the cab of the truck.
Madison, once she had that puppy, never went anywhere without the puppy.
It just doesn't make any sense, because that was Madison's friend, and she would have screamed and hollered if he'd left the dog in the car.
The whole fact that the dog was in the truck, locked up, and they're nowhere to be found, tells me that They got out of the truck in a hurry.
Even the cell phone picture of 6-year-old Madison prompts speculation among some of their friends.
I don't think her parents took that picture. I think that somebody else that she did not know took that picture. She had her arms out like this and her hand was over in a weird position. She was looking off. It wasn't a real smile. She looked very uncomfortable to me. Very uncomfortable.
Police theorized that the Jamisons were in their truck heading back down the mountain when they were interrupted.
It seemed to me like they were leaving, and that someone came up that one-way road, and they stopped. Maybe they knew them, maybe not well. They stopped, talked to the person. From there, obviously, I don't know what happened.
But investigators find no signs of a struggle at the scene of the truck.
Signs of a struggle for life or death would be violent. That's not going to be some small tussle.
There was no blood found on the vehicle. There was no broken glass.
You're obviously looking for disturbance on the ground. When people fight, there's clothes that's shredded, there's things that fall out of pockets. Whenever it's that violent, something would be left to show that there was something that happened there.
Still, friends and family think the scene suggests that the Jamisons left against their will.
I think that they were probably forced out at gunpoint. I mean, why would you struggle if someone has a gun to you?
Hopeful for a lead, investigators process every item found in the truck.
At this point, there were so many different things that led us in different directions. We weren't sure if they were lost. We weren't sure if they were abducted.
Then, buried in the clutter filling the cab, they stumble upon something they never expected. An 11-page letter written from Sherilyn to her husband, brimming with hostility.
She was lashing out big time in this letter to Bobby.
It was just a hate and discontent. The years of fighting. She felt that he wanted to be a loner and didn't really need a family. And other than that, I mean, it was just a lot of hate.
Investigators learn that in recent months, there were serious stresses in the Jamisons' marriage.
We learned from their family members that they were having problems. We had learned from the letter that they were talking about getting divorced.
They had been looking at selling their house and kind of moving away to get away from that to make things better.
Much of the strain dates back to 2003, when Bobby was involved in a serious auto accident.
Bobby was driving his truck in 2003, and he had a wreck. He was coming around a curve, which is a blind curve in the road, and this lady hit him from one side, and another lady hit him from the other side.
Since the accident, Bobby suffered from chronic pain and was unable to work.
It is very hard for him to get up out of bed even. Medicine wasn't really helping relieve the pain.
It made it hard for him to do things around the home. And I think that the pain every day, the chronic pain, really put a toll on his spirits. And I think he became depressed, and it made things more difficult in the marriage.
The letter forces investigators to consider a violent scenario in the Jamisons' disappearance. Their concerns heighten when family members tell them that a pistol belonging to Sherilyn Jamison cannot be found.
We didn't know about the .22 pistol until that moment, so we said, no, we haven't found the pistol. And they told us, okay, well, usually she carries this pistol in the vehicle.
Investigators search the Jamisons' truck and house thoroughly. When they find no pistol, they begin to fear the worst.
We got a pistol missing. We have a hate letter here. We're starting to get to point toward maybe murder-suicide. We thought to ourselves that maybe it was her that had killed them.
Coming up, leads in the Jamisons' disappearance go from confusing to downright bizarre.
Bobby had asked him, okay, is there a special bullet that I can buy to kill these?
Been missing for nearly 2 days. The possibility of foul play comes to the forefront of the investigation. as police learn more about a troubled marriage and Sherilyn's missing pistol.
A pistol being missing is important. We were told by family members that she carried the pistol everywhere. Maybe this was a murder-suicide.
If a murder-suicide had occurred, the Jamisons' bodies would still be somewhere on Panola Mountain. On October 17th, less than 24 hours after their truck was found, law enforcement begins a massive search.
The emergency management in Latimer County got a hold of all the fire departments in this area, EMS, forestry. Local people started showing up with horses, four-wheelers.
They didn't know where to go, where to start looking. You know, so they just took teams and went up there.
All of the resources of Latimer County are brought to bear. Helicopters, fixed-wing aircraft, tracking dogs, teams of horses and mule, and hundreds of personnel all assist in the search effort. The rough terrain makes everything twice as hard.
It's a triple canopy, a lot of woods, a lot of rocks, almost all of it straight uphill, and very, very tough conditions to try to do a search in.
It was also hazardous and dangerous because a lot of the people didn't know the woods and they could get lost.
Walking up those mountains and trying to keep a straight line and everybody intact is very, very hard to do in that type of terrain.
Tracking dogs are also brought up to Panola Mountain to aid in the search effort.
There were dogs that we brought up to the scene, both cadaver dogs and air scent dogs, to try to locate the Jamison family.
We used some articles from the vehicle to let the dogs take a sniff of it, try to get familiar with their scent.
The dogs start at the truck and fan outward through the surrounding terrain.
They were very interested at the top of the mountain as well as around the truck. They didn't really want to leave that area.
Although acres of woods surround the open area at the top of Panola Mountain, the dogs don't venture off the plateau. They alert on a nearby water tank, signaling investigators to the possible presence of human remains.
The tank was full of water, and the dogs seemed to have hit on it quite a bit. Obviously, we were thinking to ourselves, okay, they might be dead bodies in this tank.
The tank is drained and examined, but nothing is found inside. Search teams scour the mountainside, but find no bodies.
I find it impossible for you to be able to hide your own body. Yes, you may be able to hide one or two that you'd obviously kill, but to hide your own body would be nearly impossible.
That conclusion brings a measure of relief to the Jamisons' friends and family, who have trouble believing Sherilyn capable of murder.
I don't think there was any way, even if Sherilyn was depressed, that she would shoot Bobby. I know they had a lot of arguments and they had fights about things, but she truly loved Bobby and Bobby loved her.
To help spread the word about the Jamisons, missing posters are created and distributed around southeastern Oklahoma.
There was effort made to get information out to the public and to let them know that they were missing.
We took the picture of Madison off of their cell phone that they had taken up on the mountain. We put her age, height, her hair, date of birth. We used the driver's license of Sherilyn and Bobby, and we done the same for them.
So anybody that walked by, you could see, hey, you know, I didn't know them, or, you know, I saw them the other day.
Although their focus shifts away from murder-suicide, investigators continue to uncover strange details about the Jamisons' lives. They discover that Bobby, and especially Sherilyn, had a strong interest in spirituality.
Sherilyn had some beliefs that were not commonly shared with other people, and I think she had a tendency to exaggerate them and go a little bit overboard with them.
In the weeks prior to their disappearance, the Jamisons attended prayer meetings conducted by a local preacher, who was later interviewed by investigators.
He was talking about them seeing spirits, that they came to him and was talking to him about seeing spirits.
The preacher tells investigators that Sherilyn said that angels were coming into their home in the form of children and interacting with her 6-year-old daughter.
I know that Sherilyn had said that Madison was talking to people that had died, and one of them was named Emily. I don't think it was someone dead. I think it was an imaginary being that she, had, to cope with some of the things that were going on in her life. It's very hard for a small child to be somewhere where there's arguments going on.
The preacher also tells police that Bobby Jamison believed that he saw spirits on the roof of their Lakeside Eufaula home. It's a disturbing revelation.
It was 3 or 4 spirits that were giving them trouble and mostly talking about them being on the roof. And we had also found out from him that Bobby had asked him, okay, is there a special bullet that I can buy to kill these spirits?
That makes me sad. I mean, I don't even know. I don't even know what that would be about.
Friends and family are not clear on what Bobby may have been going through to explain such unusual behavior.
It's a mystery to me. I don't know where that came from, and I don't know the minister. I don't know the church. I've never been there before. It just doesn't sound like him to say something like that.
According to police, Sherilyn had also spray-painted odd phrases on signs and buildings in their neighborhood, including the storage container they had sitting on their lakefront property.
Sherilyn had a cat that had passed away, and she believed that it had been poisoned, and that raised a lot of issues within the neighborhood.
The graffiti said something along the lines of witches don't like their cats being killed.
I know she's told the neighbors around here she's a witch, and come on in for some witch's brew, and I think it scared people off, but I think she just didn't want to be bothered by people.
Sherilyn used to tell me, if you have a problem with somebody, make them think you're crazy. The crazier they think you are, the more they'll leave you alone. It's true, it worked. You spray paint some crazy stuff on there and people think you are crazy. I don't think anybody bothered them after that.
For investigators, the clues and odd revelations about the Jamisons' lives are not adding up to a coherent whole.
When you do an investigation, one of the ways that most of us were taught, you actually get rid of each scenario that could have happened. So process of elimination on it. And in this case, we haven't been able to completely eliminate anything.
This has been a very bizarre thing. I mean, there are so many pieces to this puzzle, and every day you find a new piece, something else comes up.
After the Jamisons have been missing for 7 days, a lead finally surfaces that appears to turn the investigation around. Law enforcement learns that the Jamison home is outfitted with surveillance cameras and that recordings were made up to the time of the family's disappearance.
Both cameras were pointed toward the driveway of the residence. We have the footage of their home surveillance that morning of them getting ready and preparing to come up to the mountain.
In the eerie-looking surveillance video recorded on the day they disappeared, the Jamisons are seen packing their truck.
The family was found going in and out of the home multiple times, back and forth to the car in somewhat of a trance-like state.
We found it odd that they had to go back and forth so many times. I would say safely each one of them, without it being an exaggeration, went 20 times back and forth. They never acknowledged each other as they were walking back and forth from the vehicle. Never acknowledged each other. It's like they were the only persons in the world.
Speculating that the Jamisons' behavior may indicate an involvement with drugs, Sheriff Beecham shows the recording to experts.
I actually had psychologists look at the footage of them leaving their house from their security cameras, trying to get an idea of what type of people they thought they were. It made me and the psychologists feel that they were on some type of drug at that time.
If the Jamisons were involved with drugs, in Latimer County, that usually means one thing.
We automatically assume here in southeastern Oklahoma, if you're on a drug, that it's methamphetamine because we have such a problem with it here.
Coming up, could a violent incident a month before the Jamisons disappeared be the key to solving the case?
Then she put the gun to his head and said, "You need to go. You need to leave right now and don't come back."
14 days. But now, a recovered surveillance video leads investigators to suspect a drug connection in their disappearance.
We felt that there was a possibility that Sherilyn and Bobby had been doing methamphetamines or other drugs by their behaviors on the video surveillance.
It can come in a powder form, it can come in a crystal form. They like to call it the redneck cocaine.
Some sort of drug connection could possibly help explain the bank bag with $32,000 found in the Jamisons' truck.
In this area, you find that much money, automatically you start to think about drugs.
But the Jamisons' friends and family believe that connecting them to illicit drug use is both wrong and unfair.
I don't know anything about having drugs or any of that. People jump to conclusions. They don't know what's happening.
I feel like a lot of the things that could be helpful in this case are almost being used to make them seem like druggies or whatever, and they weren't. They weren't at all. Everyone is speculating as to what were they really doing up there. Well, they were looking at land. It doesn't mean that they were up to no good.
Family members can also explain the seemingly suspicious array of surveillance cameras on the house. Bobby's mother says they had nothing to do with drugs. The cameras were installed for personal reasons, involving her now deceased husband.
Surveillance cameras put on the house for protection. My husband had threatened me several different times. He also threatened my son and Sherilyn. And I had the cameras installed. I'm the one that did that. I also had a security system put on my house because I was afraid. And it's hard to live through life being afraid.
FBI agents conduct a thorough search of the Jamisons' house and property.
There were no traces of methamphetamine in the home or in the vehicle.
As far as I know, the FBI did not find any drugs.
Investigators are unable to make a clear connection between the Jamisons' disappearance and drugs. But delving deeper into their personal lives, police uncover information that could explain some of Sherilyn's apparently erratic behavior.
After meeting with Sherilyn's mental health provider, we learned that she suffered from bipolar disorder and that she had been struggling for many years with the condition.
According to friends and family, Sherilyn didn't always stay on her prescribed medication.
It's a hard thing to accept that you have to take medication to be normal the rest of your life. She would do what a lot of depressed people do when you start feeling good because of the medication. You're like, oh, I'm good now. And you get off the medication and then you're worse off because your brain's trying to catch up.
I mean, she was like two different people. When she was taking her meds and taking them properly, she would be the happiest person on earth.
Sherilyn's condition could explain some of the more unusual writings in her journal, including the hostile letter written to her husband that police found in the Jamisons' truck.
When she would go in the other state of her bipolarism, she would be angry, hateful, belittling herself.
Sherilyn didn't write a word unless she was writing what was going on in her head. And that's why the journal was so disturbed.
Despite Sherilyn's sometimes erratic behavior, investigators believe that her bipolar disorder played no part in the family's disappearance. According to friends and family, her illness and Bobby's chronic pain did create enormous tensions in their marriage. But they looked at moving to Panola Mountain as a second chance at happiness.
They were trying to make a go of it. They were trying to get back together. And I think they thought if they moved up there, they could, just start a new life. My son loved her very, very much, as well as he did his daughter, and she loved them back.
By November 1st, the family has been missing for more than 3 weeks. Investigators are stumped.
Most investigators would love to have the amount of evidence that we have. And the problem is that it leads us in every which direction.
Then, just when they are running out of angles, a stunning new lead surfaces. Police learn that a few months before they disappeared, Bobby and Sherilyn took in a boarder.
There was an individual that was living with them, and this individual was there to help work on the residents.
Because of his chronic back pain, Bobby thought having another set of hands around would ease the burden on both him and Sherilyn. But according to friends, the boarder began to make Sherilyn uncomfortable when Bobby wasn't around.
Sherilyn and Madison both felt very threatened by this fellow who had been staying with them.
Investigators learn of one incident that was especially disturbing to Sherilyn.
Bobby had left to go somewhere, and the man that was staying here sat down next to her, real close, and put his face right in her face and said, I'm a white supremacist, and you keep talking about all this Indian blood you have. And I think anybody who's not pure white needs to die.
Sherilyn takes Madison away and returns with one of Bobby's guns.
She was scared for her child, and Bobby. And she pointed the gun at the guy and said, "Get off this property and don't come back."
Sherilyn fires live rounds near the boarder's feet to drive him away.
She was really torn up about that. She felt really bad about it. I mean, she was crying to me, telling me this and saying, "I've never held a gun to anyone before."
Investigators learn that the man has an extensive police record.
Obviously, this person became a great interest to us.
If you threaten someone and then they make you leave at gunpoint, that's a pretty big indicator that you might be wanting to retaliate.
The FBI launches an investigation to identify and track down the former boarder.
The FBI felt that he quite possibly could have brought them harm.
Coming up, investigators zero in on the Jamesons' boarder. What does he know about their disappearance?
This isn't a random crime. This is something that was premeditated. Somebody knew they were going to be there that day, and they took advantage of that.
And their daughter Madison have been missing for 3 weeks. But the investigation into their disappearance is finally working with a solid lead. Police learn that a month before they disappeared, a live-in handyman allegedly threatened Sherilyn's life. She forced him to leave their home at gunpoint. His current whereabouts are unknown.
We found out all the information we needed about the individual.
Investigators learn the boarder's name from a prescription bottle found in the Jamesons' truck.
We put it out to the U.S. Marshals.
U.S. Marshals find the man living in Wilburton, Oklahoma, and detain him.
U.S. Marshals tracked him down, and the FBI did interview him.
In the interview, the former boarder is able to account for his time during the Jamesons' disappearance. The FBI doesn't consider him to be a suspect. Investigators again find themselves back at square one.
I really don't know where to go from here other than each time that we get a lead, follow up on the lead.
Friends and family believe that despite the crushing challenges in their lives, the Jamesons were planning for a brighter future until something or someone got in their way.
They were trying to love each other the best they could, But knowing all of that now, it really makes me sad because they didn't get that chance to start over fresh.
Over the weeks and months that follow, investigators check out each and every lead that comes their way.
There's a rumor of them being in trouble with, whether it be organized crime or just small-time gangs or crimes. That is all rumor. And we don't know any of that for a fact. But we can't get rid of that. So it's still there.
But the rumors don't lead to a break in the case. The FBI doesn't currently consider anyone to be a suspect in the Jamisons' disappearance.
At this time, we have no suspects. And until evidence comes to life to show differently, there are no suspects.
Sheriff Beecham believes it's probable that the Jamisons were kidnapped or taken by force. He just doesn't have the evidence to prove it.
Because of everything being left in there and the way the vehicle was parked, they got out of that vehicle after they were trying to leave the location because somebody had drove up there. Somebody had drove up there and blocked their path.
It's so rural up there that you wouldn't just cross paths. This isn't a random crime. This is something that was premeditated. Somebody knew they were going to be there that day, and they took advantage of that.
Whether they made them leave by gunpoint, force, or they got in voluntarily, I don't know. And what happened from there, I don't know. But that is my current theory on what had happened.
Both family and investigators are frustrated by the magnitude of the mystery surrounding the Jamisons.
Most of the time people will tell you, and I hate saying it, but you need to find bodies. Whether alive or dead, to usually solve a case like this, you need the bodies.
Right now, we just need everyone's help in finding them and locating them, because not knowing is very hard.
I've used more resources than most people have ever used in the state of Oklahoma to try to find somebody. It's a small department. It's a small county. There's not very many people around here. Everybody talks about it now. Every day I hear, did you find that missing family yet? Did you find them? And no. That's my only answer. You know, it messes with your confidence. There's no doubt. Not being able to solve such an important case.
Perhaps due to the lack of new leads, media interest in the Jamisons' disappearance outside of Latimer County has slowed to a trickle.
Even right now, whenever I ask someone if they know about this family, a whole family that went missing, they have no idea what I'm talking about.
In the meantime, Bobby, Sherilyn, and Madison's family remains desperate for answers.
It's hard to put yourself in the family's shoes. I've never had this happen to me, and I couldn't imagine it happening to me. And it must be the toughest thing you could probably go through in a lifetime.
We've already had 7 months go by. The search has gotten kind of cold. I've gone through so many scenarios in my head. If they can help me find my kids, I'll do anything. I want my kids back.
To help the case, if anybody does know any information, they need to give us a ring. We need it. We're begging for it. If you know where they're at, tell us.
You know, I would